We are still 7 months away from CAT.
What should I drop in QA?
Bad idea.
Why are you doing this? Why are you doing CAT preparation? Why do you want to do an MBA?
Engineer, non-engineer, nobody have an edge. Everyone can crack the set.
Students have this question that what should I study?
My issue here is if you read a very long article for 30 minutes, there is no way to know whether you have understood the passage.
I keep zoning out in VARC. Now, how do I solve that problem?
It's not just about reading speed, it is also about connecting the dots, right?
Is there anything that I can drop?
You can think about leaving, let's say, the numbers part or maybe the modern math part to some extent, but there's a loophole.
Hi students, with 7 months to go for CAT, I'm sure all of you have a lot of questions in your mind, and I'm sitting in a room with a total experience of 60 plus years when it comes to helping students to prepare for the CAT. So whether you're a first timer or somebody who is taking CAT for the second or third time, or you're a student or a working professional, I'm sure you're going to have a lot to take away from this particular video. So let's get started. So I have Kumud, I have Parmeshwar, and I have Hevang sir with me, and we are going to have a conversation on what you should be doing in the next 7 months. So let's start. So my first question is going to be for Hemang sir, and the question is, is 7 months enough to crack the test?
Hi Prasad sir. Coming to your question, definitely yes. In fact, the very reason why we are doing this video is because we believe that yes, CAT can be cracked in 7 months. I would say given 7 months, you will have very few months where you can afford a lax. So for example, if you start 12 months earlier or 18 months earlier, specifically students who are still in college, they can say, okay, 1 month I am going to focus on my semester exams, or I'm going to take a 15-day break in the summer vacations. But now since you have only 7 months to crack CAT, yes, it is sufficient, but you'll have to manage your time well. More than months, I typically try to look at it as in terms of number of hours of prep. I would say somebody who is just starting fresh would need about 800 to 1000 hours of prep, assuming it's an average student to start off with. Somebody who is already good at aptitude may require only about 600 hours of CAT. So I would say the right question to ask is, how do I make sufficient time so that I can give my best to CAT? So if you're working, maybe you'll have to put in hours before your work or after your work. If you're in college, definitely you have time. You can manage your recreational activities as well as you can manage CAT. So summary, yes, it is enough, but you'll have to be efficient while it comes to managing your time.
Okay. And we'll talk about the individual sections. So we'll first start with the VRC section, something that they face in the CAT as the first section. So I want to start with you, Kumud. A lot of students, especially for repeat takers, right, because they have gone through that experience of taking the test, and now they have realized that VRC, for whatever reason, didn't go well, maybe in CAT 24 or CAT 25. So how should a repeat taker look at VRC as a section? And then how should somebody who is taking for the very first time should prepare for VRC?
I'll start with some of the things that students have told me as to why they feel they hadn't done well. One is that they think it's VARC, so they don't really need to worry too much as compared to Quant, which is something most people worry about. So first thing, please prepare for VARC. It does require preparation. Apart from that, you also need to think about what this preparation is all about. This preparation is not only about solving a lot of questions and taking tests, which is fairly obvious. It is also about investing time in reading, going through your mistakes, figuring out why those mistakes were made. Because when we tell you that you need to eliminate options, there is a logic behind it. It is not intuitive. It is not as if I just understand the passage, I will be able to answer. So focus on the technique. So if you look at reading the right kind of content, technique for solving different question types, taking enough tests, reviewing your mistakes, and taking VARC as a section that requires preparation, then I think you should definitely do better.
Okay. And so a lot of students think that if they are good at RC, they will also be good at VA. Or some people think that if they're good at VA, they'll be good at RC. So is that true or it's not?
I would like to say yes, but in real life, I've seen that it's not always the case. Because fundamentally the exam is testing your ability to work with text, right? So if you can work with text, then you can work with all kinds of text. Therefore, being good at RC should equal being good at VA. The problem, however, is when you do not realize that there is a method for solving each question. RC, I comprehend the passage, I look at each question, and I need to find those answers in the text. But if I'm solving a parajumble, then where do I find that answer? Then I need a slightly different method to connect those sentences. If I haven't practiced enough parajumbles, then I'm not likely to do well. So practice enough VA. Do not assume that doing just RC is going to get you through those questions as well. Another thing that people often do is that they don't like a particular question type, say summary questions. So then they're not going to practice it, assuming anyway I'm not going to do well at it, right? So that's the wrong strategy. What if the summary question is the easy question? So make sure that you do both, enough RC and enough VA.
Okay. And so definitely reading is extremely crucial. So I would like to ask Hemang sir. So firstly, what should students read? And on a daily basis, right? Somebody who is maybe just starting prep or they already started prep, how much general reading should they do in addition to the VA and RC questions that they solve? And from where should they read, let's say, whatever novels, magazines, whatever you recommend?
Yes, so see, we can look at reading in two parts. One is general reading. So maybe a lot of students, maybe the number is in decline, but do read as a hobby. So that definitely helps their CAT prep, right? So if you are in that category, novels, magazines definitely will help. If you want, you can move to what we call as a higher level of difficulty of the text. So that will help. In case you are not into reading at all, you will have to try to start reading because what is being tested here, what you develop here is the stamina to go through long text. If you look at only the VRC section, roughly 3000 words you have to read only in the VRC section. Quant DLR obviously would be another 2500 words, right? So you will need to have the stamina to read 3000 words. So anything to that length is great, I would say. When it comes to CAT specifically, I would say a lot of people recommend that you should read the Eon and the other magazines. I would say for a beginner that may not be the best advice. My issue here is if you read a very long article for 30 minutes, there is no way to know whether you have understood the passage correctly, right? Then I've read something in my mind, I don't know whether I've understood something. It may look like a waste of time. I also maybe get demotivated. So I would say start with very structured prep. So for example, on the portal we have passages classified as beginner, intermediate, advanced, and we are going to add more passages there so that you know that if I don't understand something, there is a video solution by Kumud ma'am where she'll explain what happened in the passage. So it's more guided prep which will help you in your CAT preparation. Eon, etc. If you are performing that level at let's say 99 percentile mark where you want to challenge yourself, that's a great source to then look at. Otherwise, you should stick to novels, magazine, and the structured passages that we have on the IMS portal.
So I have a question which is associated to what you just said, right? That if I'm reading an article for 30 minutes, I may forget what I've read, right? So and the question that I want to ask is about zoning out. That even if I have 30 minutes, definitely somebody is going to zone out. But what if I have the RC passages that we have, right? So maybe 4 paragraphs, 5 paragraphs. And it's a common thing that we have observed that students come and say when they're taking SimCATs that I start reading the passage. After first paragraph, I've forgotten what I read. So I keep zoning out in VRC. Now, how do I solve that problem?
I think it's a focus issue, which I think is a problem that affects a generation now. But if we gloss over that and think about what specifically can be done, one of the things that we could possibly do is to think about how that passage or text is relevant to our lives. I know that this may be very difficult when you're under stress, but if I'm reading about, say, liberalism or communism, if I already know what these words mean, then the passage will make a lot more sense to me. So when I say that it has to connect with our lives, I need to start thinking about maybe some of the other material that I might have read. And if I have that background information, then somehow I will be able to get through this text as well. That is how reading helps. It's not just about reading speed, it is also about connecting the dots, right? But we do have another method that you could use for zoning out. We have talked about it in a lot of our videos. It's called the paragraph to question technique. So in case this is a persistent issue, maybe you can look at it. I'm not going to go into the paragraph to question technique right now because we've talked about it extensively.
Okay, all right. So before we move on to Quant, one question about VRC is that what is the most common mistake that you think students do? Maybe it is something where they invest a lot of time, they think it is going to give good returns from a preparation perspective, but it doesn't help. You think it's maybe the return on investment is lower.
One of the things that people do is that they invest time in taking tests, but they don't analyze those tests. Again, I understand why that would happen. I take the VARC section, but I don't know how to analyze it. I mean, what do I do there? So you need to do exactly what you do for Quant. Go back to the questions that you have gotten wrong. Try to come up with an explanation for why your answer is wrong. So that's the kind of analysis that you need to do instead of just looking at your answer saying, oh, it's wrong, and then moving on. So that's not going to help. Then the test is a waste of time. Another thing that people do is somehow they believe that learning a lot of words is going to help them with RC. Yes, there is a connection, but it's not necessarily a direct one. So if I memorize a word list, that will not automatically help me understand a passage. So maybe make sure that you pick up words from reading rather than just mugging up word lists.
Okay. So Parmeshwar, we'll start with Quant. And the first question that I want to ask you is, what's the difference when it comes to preparation strategy for an engineer versus a non-engineer? Because we get this a lot that I am a non-engineer, so I won't be able to do well on the Quant. So is that true? What do you think?
The main issue basically arises of the fact that they might have taken or not taken, let's say, math, let's say, after their class 10. So it might be at least a 4-year or let's say 5-year window where they are, let's say, away from this particular topic. And that is the main fear which comes. But if you look at on the other side, if you look at the content or maybe the syllabus of Quant, majority of the portion is something which they have learned, let's say, till class 10th. Be it algebra, be it arithmetic, be it geometry, everything they have done, let's say, till class 10th. And till class 10th, it is compulsory for someone to, let's say, read a math, this topic basically. And math basically is a part of their curriculum. So keeping aside few topic like maybe permutation combination or maybe a function to some extent, everything else basically was covered till class 10. So it's not a cause of concern for them. It is only about maybe spending some time to go back into the grooves and spending maybe let's say 2-3 weeks to understand the content of CAT. That is not really difficult. It's not an IIT where someone has to do a rote learning and remember, let's say, humongous number of formulas, humongous number of concepts. Most of them are logical. So once, let's say, someone, let's say, do arithmetic or even algebra for that matter, they will realize they're not supposed to remember the formulas. And gradually, with a, let's say, nice preparation, things are going to become, let's say, very, very straightforward for engineer as well as non-engineer. Now, if you look at engineer, they have, let's say, an habit of solving problem. They, let's say, prove some result. So they might have a slight edge over the others. Having said that, people, let's say, who are going to perform well, they are, let's say, equally good. If you look at any of the batch profile, you have mix of, let's say, non-engineer along with the engineers people as well, right? So the problem basically is going to be when they are going to solve the sum in a very long method by the conventional method. So the point is, if you want to improve, be it engineer, be it non-engineer, they have to learn different approaches. And that's where the mentor role basically pitch in, where we are going to talk about not only the easier method or the longer method, but we'll talk about the structured approach. How do you think? And that's where the mentor role basically comes in.
Okay. And you spoke about doing long methods versus sort of an optimized kind of solution. How do students develop that sort of intuition or skill? Because a lot of times students come and say that, hey, I've done class exercise, I've done practice exercise, but still when I go to the test, I'm not able to solve questions or I'm not able to solve as if a mentor would solve, right? Or in the best optimized manner. So how do I develop that sort of intuition?
So normally my guidance basically will be always solve the sum, let's say, in a longer method first. So maybe if you want to take 5 variables, X, Y, Z, and so on, you solve with whatever approach you are able to think through. Once you will solve, you will realize that you have got the answer, but you are not able to find out the value of X. You have not find out the value of Y. It simply means one thing, that there was no need to take those values, and we can take, let's say, our own assumption regarding those numbers. And once people have an idea, regarding the percentage and the reciprocal, you will realize that a common mistake which people used to do in the classes, let's say class 7, 8, 9, to assume a number 100. This was told universally by every mentor to take the number 100. But once you, let's say, develop an habit of knowing the fraction and the reciprocal, you will start knowing that only 100 might not be a best of the choices. You will say why someone have taken a number like 700 or a 800, and the reason basically might be there present in the question itself. By looking at the number like 12.5% indicates a 1 upon 8, it might be a good idea to take a 800 as a starting point, which can give you a good number. Now, what is the problem? What is the issue in case I take a number like 100? It might, let's say, give you decimals or a fraction in your, let's say, calculation. And people have a tough time dealing with the fractions or, let's say, the decimal part. So once you take a suitable number, your numbers are going to come out to be integers, and adding or subtracting or multiplying integers is a very, very easier task for each of us over here.
Okay. And one common question that we get from every student, right, that what should I drop? That there are 5 major areas. Is there anything that I can drop? And that question keeps changing, right? So in the beginning, they'll say, okay, which one area should I drop? As we get closer to the exam, which 2 areas can I drop, right? So should we drop anything in the first place?
See, the point is, if you look at the split of the, let's say, CAT paper of the last 5 year, 10 year, you will definitely see a trend. And if I see a trend, arithmetic, then algebra, and then geometry to some extent become the most important. So definitely AAG, we call it to be like a AG, lagado. So this AAG is going to be your prime focus. You need to strengthen those 3 subjects, arithmetic, algebra, geometry. And then if time permit, you can think about leaving, let's say, the numbers part or maybe the modern math part to some extent. But there's a loophole. The issue basically would be that sometime there will be question on the DI which might test you on the concept of permutation combination. It's a recent trend which you might have seen also. And there was a year, I think 23 or 24, where there was a DI set in each slot testing you on the concept like range, mean, median. So someone saying such stat is not going to be a part of CAT, but knowing those terms really help you a lot, and those set were easier for someone who know those definition of what is a mean, what is a median. And this is going to be true, let's say, for percentage, ratios, even algebra. Some of the, let's say, questions will require number solving skills. If you have only 2 equations and you might have only 3, 4 solutions which are possible, someone who know how to deal with those kind of problem will have a, let's say, easier path in the DI section. So leaving completely, I would say, yes, it might be that you have a strong in AAG, but you are weaker in, let's say, numbers and PNC, but don't leave it entirely, because in case a sitter come from those, let's say, topic, you might, let's say, curse yourself once you come up from the exam thinking I have missed out a simple +3 out of it.
Okay. And with respect to, let's move to DILR now. So students have this question that what should I study? Because the syllabus is very limited. You have very limited set of topics. Now, how do I get better at DLR? Because I may have solved n number of sets, but I'm still not able to solve it during the test. So how do I identify the right sets? I'm not able to do that, or I'm taking too much time. So how do I prepare for DLR? So if you're just starting, what you should do?
See, for any person, I would say a good number to practice is going to be roughly 400 to 500 sets. Now, depending on when do you start, so for, let's say, right now, if you have, let's say, 7 months, which I will assume approximately 200 days which you have, you need to practice 2 sets a day. This basically goes not accounting for the set which you are going to encounter in the SimCats. Different practice, let's say, apart from the mock, it has to be minimum 400. So per day, you need to do minimum 2 sets over here. Now, why we need to do so many sets? The issue is that if you talk about this section, especially DILR, engineer, non-engineer, nobody have an edge, because this thing has never been taught to you in the school in a formal way. So everyone is encountering it for the first time. So this is a level playing field, let's say, for the BCom student, or you say BBA student, or let's say even a BTech student for that matter. Leaving aside, let's say, some component where you might say they have a plain calculation based set, which is no longer, let's say, comes in the CAT part. Now, if I, let's say, have an experience of, let's say, only 10 sets or a 15 sets, and if I go for a mock or, let's say, the actual test, most likely, if I look at the 5 sets, they are going to be unfamiliar to me. So the reason of, let's say, practicing a good number is going to come from moment I see something familiar. So I have a lot of examples. There was a set in 2017 which was being a replica of 2007. So anyone, let's say, who might have solved a past CAT will have an edge because he will know what exactly need to be done to that particular set, and he can crack the set in 5 minutes timeline because he will know the structure of creating those particular set. And there was a lot of time the things basically have repeated. So moment I have a good 400 sets or a 500 set, the number is no longer going to be a sacrosanct figure, because every time you take a mock, you will find a new set and you will think about how do you structure. So moment, let's say I have an experience of a good number of sets, I have some sort of benchmark in terms of how to structure those data. How do I go about? Because let me tell you one thing, if a mentor just tell a student, start with point number 5, then go to 3, then go to 2, then go to 7, and that order basically has been told to them, that's the ideal path, everyone can crack the set. But the issue is that how a person is going to figure out on his own. And the answer basically is going to be very, very straightforward. Move from known to unknown and not, let's say, from unknown to known. So you look at first statement, and if you see there are 10 possibilities to begin with, don't start immediately. Move on to point number 2, move on to point number 3. If point number 3 give you something concrete, this is reducing your cases for the earlier points. So start with couple of points which are going to give you sure shot. Let's say you can place those numbers in the form of table or whatever representation which you might have done, and then your cases are going to reduce automatically. They are going to be very, very relevant.
Okay. And
Prasad sir, I would just like to add to what Parmeshwar just said. In fact, his own incident. So see, what he said, is in a way, DLR is a lot about pattern recognition. That if I've done, like he said, 400 sets or 500 sets, you know that something similar appeared in the past. So I remember whenever the CAT team and Parmeshwar sir discuss something, and I've seen it myself, that whenever a set is shown to him, his first reaction is, oh, this is very similar to CAT 16, or this is really similar to SimCAT season 22, and then the solutions flow automatically. So I think he's a living example of what he just mentioned, that I would say his database of the known types of sets is so huge that anything that comes up in front of him, he's able to match it. So completely agree to what he said, that it is all about pattern recognition. And I'd just like to ask a question to you, Prasad sir, that you have been a non-engineer and you're obviously fantastic at both Quant and DLR. So when it comes to even DLR, a lot of people struggle with some types of sets. So how would you want to address that type of?
So as a non-engineer, right? So one thing that helped me was I liked Quant. So when I was in school also, I used to enjoy Quant. So that definitely helped. But one thing that I keep telling non-engineers is that you don't have to love mathematics to crack the test, right? Ultimately, you have to understand that you're preparing for a test. That is the objective. The objective is not to be a math lover. So you can do enough to crack the test. So that is why, whether it is Quant or DILR, you start with the right objective, that why am I doing this in the first place? What helped me specifically was, especially for Quant, is sitting with questions for a long period. So as Parmeshwar said, right, that you have to appreciate the long method, and then only you appreciate the shortcuts. And you develop it over a period of time, that, hey, I know this is the long way to solve a question, but now what steps can I skip? And the more time you spend with your rough sheets, it's better, where you start realizing that, hey, I've written let X be the total units of work, but is it required? Because that's what I used to do in school. Let X be the total units of work, because I had marks for the steps that I'm taking. Right now, I'm not going to get marks for that, right? So I can just say X is equal to this and just finish it off. For DLR specifically, one shift in approach which I would recommend to students is to look at a solution and try and explain it to somebody. Because when you do that, there may not be anybody next to you, and it will look a little funny that you are acting as if you're teaching somebody. But what if you go through that set and try to explain it to somebody, that, okay, this is how you solve it. The way we record our SimCAT video solutions, right? That we also brainstorm that what is the best way and in what path we should have gone about this particular set. That really helps. So I used to do that a lot, where I would explain myself that, okay, this is how you solve this particular question or set. So maybe those things can be done by students as well, and see if that helps you.
Right. And just one small addition question again to you, Prasad sir. So since we're talking so much about past CAT sets giving you a pattern. So do you recommend that students at this point of time, 7 months away from CAT, should look at past CAT papers and then start solving DLR, or would you have some other approach in mind?
Okay, so it doesn't hurt to take maybe one test, right? So maybe if you're just starting your prep, for example, right, maybe take one past CAT paper. It could be say CAT 21, 22, 23, anything is fine. Which is just to see, okay, what sort of thing you're getting into, right? That there is VRC, there's DLR, there's just to get some familiarity. But right now, I don't think people should start taking full-length past CAT papers. They should start with SimCATs, build some level of practice, and then do past CAT papers, because then they will firstly be in a position to say that, okay, if this is a past CAT paper and this is what I've got, maybe this is the percentile where I stand, because all those benchmarks are available. So then I know, okay, fine, if I'm getting a score of say 60 in a past CAT paper, I know this corresponds to say a 90 percentile or an 85 percentile. And that will be a good confidence booster, but you don't need to have it at this point of time. So you start roughly around August, I would say, where you start taking past CAT papers, August, September, October, November. So you have 4 months wherein you can do that. What will also happen is by the time you reach August, you are more mature as a candidate. You have done a lot of questions, as Parmeshwar mentioned, right? Your exposure has gone up. You might end up doing, let's say, 200 sets prior to that. So then you are truly benefiting from a past CAT paper experience rather than doing it at this point of time, is what I think. So one thing that I wanted to ask was regarding revision. So for QA and DLR, what exactly to revise? So students have this, that I've done module 1. Now, how do I revise module 1? And the same for VRC, which you can share as to what is revision for VRC, because generally there's confusion. So even as a student, I didn't know what to revise for VRC. So we can start with QA DLR and then talk about VRC.
The main question which people come up with is that, sir, they have forgotten the concepts. So the best way they can tackle this particular part will be to go to the concept videos. So for each and every chapter, if I look at the concept videos are going to be in the range of 15 or 20 odd minutes, which they can obviously run at a higher speed because they already have gone through the concept video earlier, and they must have done their, let's say, preparation in the lecture as well. Now, apart from that, if they don't want to go through the concept video part, they can also look at their own notebook, where I tell them, let's say, to make for each and every chapter maybe 2 kinds of formula or the concept, one which are going to be bare minimum, which are going to be the most important one. If someone don't know those concept and the formula, they are not going to, let's say, solve any sum. But beyond that, there are some exotic formula which are going to be applicable only in the rare cases, or maybe in specific cases. If they are going to meet in that particular case, they can be answered by the student. So people should know the basic ones which are going to be very relevant. And maybe I'm giving an example in case suppose someone talk about selling 2 objects at the same selling price, with one at 10%, one at the 10% loss. Then we have a formula to solve this. It's fine if someone don't know the formula, they can still crack it with the help of the basic concepts they have built. So it's not compulsory for someone to know those formula. They have to be by heart, because tendency will be to know so many formulas then. And over a period of time, you will realize there's no need to do revision, because whatever you have learned in module number 1 are going to be more logic. So if you're going to, let's say, solve some with the help of logic and with the common sense, the dependency on the formula is going to be less, and there's no need to revise it very often. Maybe let's say after every month you want to revise module number 1 or module number 2 or module number 3 for that matter. And this issue mainly comes, let's say, in geometry, because in geometry you have so many theorems, and they say, I don't recollect the theorems. The issue is you might not have proven them at the first place. If I prove something, they are going to stay with me for a longer time. So at least I am saying anyone who's preparing, maybe for preparing for 1 year, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, if you have solved it, if you have proved it for the first time, you don't need to do a review or extensive review on those theorems and the formulas.
And how do they revise DLR? Because
for DILR, again, if you look at different type, because in our module, let's say on the portal itself, we have made sets in terms of types, Venn diagram, tournament, arrangement. So whenever you will take mock, and the outcome basically will tell you that, okay, you have done poorly, let's say in the Venn diagram over the last, let's say 2-3 tests, there was 2 times Venn diagram appeared and you were not able to crack it. So depending on the, let's say, outcome, I can decide, okay, from, let's say, SimCAT number, let's say X SimCAT to a SimCAT X+1 or a X+2, I want to practice Venn diagram. Or let's say I want to, let's say, become better in the tournament. And that can happen if I'm, let's say, trying to practice additional set on those particular topic. So it's better idea go for family tree, deductive reasoning, or maybe arrangement based set, or maybe it's a puzzle based set, which I'm not able to solve in the exams. So maybe accordingly you can decide on the outcome basis.
Okay. What about VRC? What's there to revise? Is what I used to think as a student. So forgive me.
No, not at all. I don't think there is necessarily a lot to revise, but my answer will be very similar to what Param said for DILR. It is need-based. For example, if you are consistently messing up on para-completion questions, then there is something you must be doing wrong. Then I might want to go back to that chapter, look at how it was taught in class. Is it the technique that you're using, perhaps? Because otherwise you cannot consistently get it wrong, right? Or let's say if it is a summary question, maybe the question is hard, in which case if you get it wrong, understand. But what if the question was easy and the others got it right? Is it because you did not understand the paragraph, or is it because your option elimination was faulty? So I would go back and look at how summary questions were done in class. So that is how it would be need-based revision. Now for RC, unfortunately, there is no way that I can say, oh, I am bad at political passages, so let me look at 100 political passages and get better at it. May not happen. But what if there is a mental block that you have? The moment I see a political passage, my mind shuts off. I zone out. In which case, there is something you can do about it. Look at more political content, and that will maybe enable you to deal with them better. So I think that is all that you can do for revision.
Okay. And since you mentioned the word mental block, right? So I want to ask Hemang sir, from a strategy standpoint, students tend to have different kinds of mental block, right? It could be VRC, it could be DLR, it could be that I am a non-engineer, I am a general engineer male, I have whatever, right? I have not done quant for a long time. So how do they break out of that thing, right? So how do they reduce the clutter that is there in their mind and keep positive spirit about their preparation?
Correct. So see, as a first step, Prasad sir, I would recommend that you can only change what you can change. So for example, a lot of students say, sir, my 10th is bad, my 12th is bad, I'm a gem. So I say you can't go back to your 10th and change your scores. You can't change your gender. Maybe it's too late now. So just accept the fact that yes, because of these issues, I may have to score 4 points or 4 marks extra as compared to the next person, right? So acceptance about your past is the first step. Second is acknowledging your faults when it comes to the 3 sections. So for example, I know, like Param sir mentioned, maybe I am weak only at arithmetic, right? So I will have to work hard on arithmetic, or the example that she mentioned, right? I know for a fact that RC is my Achilles heel, so I will have to do a little more work on that. So I would say, given that we are still 7 months away from CAT, let's focus more on the preparation part. When it comes to the actual test taking strategy, we have more than enough number of SIMCATs in front of us to then work on each specific issue. So maybe you miss the easy questions, maybe you are attempting too many difficult questions, maybe you have a stamina issue only for the last 10 minutes, or maybe you panic in the last 3 minutes and have random attempts, right? So those can be dealt later, I would say, when you have done 5-10 SIMCATs and not before that. As of now, I would say let's stick to the preparation gaps that I have. So I would say past, just accept whatever is there in your profile and just focus on the prep. That would be my solution. There is some joy in ranting out to friends multiple times that, oh, I'm a gem. But when it comes to actual CAT prep, I don't think it has too much value to add, I would say.
Okay. And regarding when we look at SIMCATs, right? So firstly, we are starting with the SIMCAT season now. So the first SIMCAT is going to happen soon. A lot of students have this thing that I will wait for a certain month and then I will start taking SIMCATs. So do you think students should start it early? Students should wait for some more time? What should they do?
So our recommended approach has been that specifically if you are a first timer, maybe you should have done, let's say, module 1 and module 2 to seriously take the first SIMCAT. Or you can always tell yourself, look, this is just like you mentioned in your answer, that I'm just taking this to get a sense of where do I stand before I actually start my prep. So be clear about the objective. For example, I just joined yesterday, today I'm going to take a test. If you decide to take, then you know this is only an exploratory test. I will not read too much into the percentile, etc., into the scores. But I've already spent, let's say, 5 months with an IMS course, and now I've genuinely prepared enough. Then those scores are my first indicator that yes, you are still not up to the mark in, let's say, quant. Maybe closer to July, August, the marks will be taken much more seriously. That look, you are only 2 months away from CAT and you still have an issue with your quants, for example. So the objective has to be very clear, because a lot of times, I've seen this, that it's the genuine fear of seeing you have not cleared the cutoff on the scorecard, right? So if my objective is very different, look, this is just to get used to it, then it will not hit me so bad. That should help you or the students, overcome the fear of taking a SimCAT. So you can discuss with your mentor, like, sir, the next 3 SimCATs are only to, help me get over my fear of test taking. We will not even look at the scores. I'm completely all right with that. But once you tell yourself and your mentor, look, from now onwards, the scores really tell me something, that time you should definitely stick to your schedule of taking SimCATs. And all stats at IMS prove that, the toppers do end up taking a lot of SimCATs. In fact, we have seen that the average number of SimCATs taken by, we have something called as Club 150, which is 90 percentile plus 3 times. The average number of SimCATs there is close to 16 out of the 20 proctored SimCATs. So that tells you the importance of taking a test. So we should be aiming to take those 16, 17. The schedule may change. Somebody might say, I will take only one in April, one in May, one in June, and I will do more towards the last few months. Whereas somebody who has started preparing 1 year ago will say, I will do 2 in April, 2 in May. So it's like a Rajasthan Royal who says, I will maximize my power play, versus some other team saying, I'm going to maximize my last 4 overs. So depends on your strategy, I would say.
And something that Parameshwar mentioned, right, exotic formulae. So, I think I have seen that happen in across the sections, where students try to run behind certain specific things. It could be things like Fermat's last theorem, Shoeless theorem, Euler's torsion function, and all of that. In VRC, it may happen that people keep saying that, okay, I'm going to do, say, GMAT RCs, I'm going to do GMAT critical reasoning. So should they be going outside what typically the boundary of CAT has been and do these extra lesser known kind of things? Should they be doing extra material like GMAT material, for example? So what's your take on it?
See, those things should only come into picture once I achieve certain percentile. So once someone says, okay, I am reaching a 95 percentile consistently, and let's say you want to break a 99 or maybe a higher 99 point, let's say 8 plus kind of number, then maybe those things might make sense, but not at the cost of saying I don't know the basic and I want to learn the magical stuff, or let's say the higher formulas and so on. Those things are not going to be helpful at all. See, when sir just told right now that a person after module number 1, if I tell him that kindly take the mock, the common answer basically will be, let me complete my preparation, let me complete my syllabus. And the answer for that will be that it never happen. It might be, let's say, the month of October, where you might say, I have done all the 4 modules, or let's say, I have solved on my own. Because we will, let's say, complete the thing, let's say, by the month of July or August, depending on the kind of batch you might have joined. But the preparation from your side might be over afterwards. It might be October, it might be, let's say, the start of November, and it might be too late for you to take the mock. Because mock basically will give you a good mirror reflection of where do you stand right now. And from mock number 1 to mock number 2, you plan out what you need to do to improve your score, let's say, by 2 marks or a 3 marks or a 4 marks. But if you start taking the mock in the month of October, November only, you will have too little time to, let's say, make those corrective actions. And the good part will be, if you are taking, let's say, after module number 1, you can tell yourself, I have not done enough. And you can say, well, am I able to solve the sum, let's say, from which came, let's say, in module number, from module number 1. So you can keep the benchmark slightly lower as well. But moment you say, I will complete my everything, and then the score came out to be low, you'll be devastated. And you won't take any further mocks.
Okay. So what about VRC? So should students be doing, GMAT is like the typical thing that we keep getting, right? That if I do GMAT RCs, GMAT CR, it's going to help me for CAT. Is that true?
Well, there is a great deal of overlap between the tests, so it might. But let's look at the rationale behind why we should do it. One, it might be I have run out of material, which I have rarely seen, right? So it's more that other people are doing it and maybe they're doing something that I should also be doing. So maybe they're being swayed by popular opinion. That could be one reason. The other is if I practice critical reasoning, yes, GMAT probably will hone my CR skills. True, because CAT does not have standalone critical reasoning questions. But why do I need to do that? Is it because my CR is bad and I'm not able to answer those questions in RC? In which case, it might help a little bit. But if that is not the case, then it's not going to really gain me any other points. So maybe then it's probably just a waste of time, or maybe it will just give you some satisfaction that you have solved additional material, but you may not score any points in the test. So let's focus on the basics. And if the basics are all done and you have reached a certain level of performance, then maybe you might want to hone specific skills that might help you further.
Now let's talk about students who have just graduated or who are about to graduate now in 26. So a lot of them have this question that should I just prepare for CAT or should I start working? And generally they think that if they have more time, they'll be able to prepare more. And the same is the case for even students who have some work experience. They think that I'm going to quit my job so that I'll get more time to prepare. So sir, what's your take on this? So both for students and working professionals.
So I'll first start with students who are just about to graduate. So if I look at the technical rules of CAT, they count work X up till 31st of July. So if you graduate in April, even if you have a job right on day one, you'll have just 3 months of work experience, and when it comes to the actual points allocated to work experience, it will be a 0. So in that case, a lot of people do not have a job given the current market situation. So maybe it's already September, October, and it's okay to not have a job. So I would not stress too much if I have not landed a job. Correct. And I would say nowadays everybody knows that if you have graduated in 26, it is very unlikely that you will have some work experience before you take the CAT. So if you don't have a job, I would say it's okay. But if you already graduated last year, my default answer is you should not quit your job to prepare. And to get to a yes, it requires a discussion with your mentors. So maybe there are two cases, and I've seen a few such cases in my mentoring already that I've been doing this for 2 years now, and every time I just miss the cutoff, for a few points, and my work is so hectic that had I just prepared for 100 more hours, I would have, crossed that line. In that cases, with a discussion with the mentors, maybe post 31st of July, you can think of going on a sabbatical, going on unpaid leave. Quitting a job would be the third option in my list. So by default, you should not quit your job unless there is a genuine reason why you should, quit your job, and the stakes are going to be higher in that case. So that would be my answer. So people who work have very, very, I would say timelines like, okay, 12-hour job plus 3 hours of travel in city like Mumbai, Bangalore. Then there are some cases to be made for why I should quit. In other cases, I think you should stick to your work because then you don't have pressure while you're taking the CAT, because CAT anyways creates a lot of pressure for students. Then you're saying, oh, if I don't crack this, I've already quit a 20 lakh job. It just adds to your pressure while you're taking that 2-hour test on the last Sunday of November, I would say.
Okay, and for students who decide that, okay, I'm not going to work somewhere and I'm just going to focus on CAT, what should their typical day schedule look like?
See, I would say, assume you are working, then you would have worked at least 8 hours a day. Now you have decided CAT is your full-time work. So logically speaking, it should be 8 hours of prep time. Maybe you discount some of it and it will come to about 6 to 7 hours of prep. So if you are giving up working, then it better not go into watching Netflix and just, chilling out, I would say. So that should translate into genuinely additional prep time for CAT, so that's my honest answer. So I know it's a little fuzzy, but I would say every day at the end of the day, ask yourself, did I do justice to my CAT prep today? Whether you're working or not. If the answer is a yes, I think you had a good day. If the answer is no, I think you should prepare before you go to sleep for that day.
Okay, and what about, say, doing some internships or courses, certifications? What's the recommendation?
Definitely, yes, you should do an internship. Given again, it should not become like a 14-hour job in itself. You're doing it for a limited period of time. So definite answer is yes. If you get one, please do it. It gives you some practical experience. It helps you to face the interview better, I would say. Courses, yes, till a point of time, so I would say, see, courses helps you build your profile. It helps you build your extracurriculars, right? So first step is CAT, then comes the courses. So it should not happen that I'm sacrificing my CAT prep time just for profile building, right? So I always generally say that to talk about your course, you need to reach the interview, and to reach the interview, you need to get a particular percentile. So first get that percentile, and time permits, bandwidth permits, you should do your courses, I would say. So just to combine your answers, I am not working full time, correct? Then yes, I would say I'm going to do 2-3 courses on Coursera or any other platform, or an internship along with my CAT prep. You're already working, you don't need to then say I'm going to do Coursera also and I'm also going to do my CAT prep. Then you can say work itself is my profile and I'm going to do only my CAT prep.
Okay.
Just to add to what sir has told, one common mistake which people do is they come and ask me, I have taken a leave of 1 month or 3 weeks in the month of November, especially by the work people. And my answer to that will be, don't take the leave, let's say, towards the very end. If you want to take a long leave of 3 weeks or a 1 month, take it slightly earlier, maybe in the month of July, maybe in the month of August, if possible. If the situation is such that you can get a leave of 1 month or a 3 week, take it in the month of July, August, so you can speed up. Because one, the foundation basically is going to be laid up by you, let's say in the month of July or August, you can do tremendously well. It is going to be in an auto mode. The main trouble basically is going to be laying the foundation for the takeoff. But once the takeoff basically is done, you can improve much more, let's say in the August month, September month, and so on.
So we'll talk about one more aspect where a lot of students struggle is they are not able to see progress, right? So I have been studying, I have been putting in the hours that are required, but my mock scores are not improving. And then they start questioning whether am I even progressing in the right direction or not. And the progress is going to be slow. All of us know that. The students also know that to an extent, but for whatever reasons, they're not convinced. So with respect to both Quant DILR as one broad area and VARC, if the scores are not improving, how do I interpret that? So we'll start with VARC.
I was hoping you'd start with someone else. But okay, VARC progress is going to be slow. In fact, I think in Quant, if I study a couple of concepts and I'm able to answer a few questions, I'm likely to see slightly speedier progress. But how do I become a better reader in, say, 2 weeks? That's not going to happen. So between one SimCat and the next one, normally there's a week or 2 weeks. Right? So that is not something one should expect at all. You are learning a skill. Skill building takes time. So I would definitely try to give it about a month or so before I can see significant improvement. Now, what is significant improvement? My target might be to attempt more questions because maybe my attempts are fewer. My target might be to improve my accuracy. So let's also try to look at what is it that I'm working on. For example, in Quant, I can say I'm working on arithmetic. In VARC, I can say I'm working on RC. But what in RC? Are you trying to do more passages? Or are you trying to do more diverse passages? Or are you telling yourself, you know what, in this test, I'm going to attempt an abstract passage because I've never been able to do that earlier, right? So let's set slightly more specific goals, then progress is slightly easier to track rather than saying VARC is not getting better. Okay, so that is one. Secondly, the moment you set specific goals, you know what to work on. If I'm working on reading faster, then I'm going to look at reading more content for a longer period of time and trying to speed up. That means avoid rereading, avoid moving my lips, things like that. Specific things designed to make you read fast. If I'm trying to work on accuracy, part of it is obviously question solving technique, but part of it is also deciding which questions not to solve. So then I'm going to work on my test strategy as well. If I'm trying to say RC is fine, but VA is not fine, obviously then solve more VA questions and look at where you're going wrong. So that's all that needs to be done. I think the problem is that we look at VARC as this one big fuzzy thing rather than break it up into smaller things.
Okay. How about Quant and DLR?
If the scores are, let's say, not moving ahead in case of a quant section, try to find out the root cause. So there could be, let's say, a couple of them. One of them could be the conceptual error which you're making. Sometimes it could be a silly error which can be easily rectified. At the same time, it could be an issue of choosing the difficult ones. So the ABC strategy is going to come over here. So choose the right questions So it's perfectly fine in case I'm able to spot a difficult question and I'm letting it go after, let's say, 15 or 20 seconds. It's a good thing which you have done. So identify whether you are, let's say, picking the B's as A or you're making those A as C. Those are the issue which you need to iron out, let's say, over a period of time. So don't, let's say, spend too much of time, because a quant question ideally can be solved, let's say, within a 2 minute or maybe 2.5 minute. But in case, suppose a easy question, you are able to, let's say, take a 6 minute timeline, it simply means either it was not a at first place, or you might not have done it, let's say, in the proper way it was supposed to. So identify whether you are doing the right selection of the questions or not is going to be a game changer over here in the quant section.
I just like to add to it. So I would say generally progress is not linear. So everybody is going to see there's ups and downs. So you start at, let's say, a 60 percentile, then after 5 tests you hit that 93 percentile mark. You get overconfident, you stop practicing, you might just come back to 80 percentile. When you get a wake up call, you might again go to 85, so on and so forth. So I would say this ups and downs are a part of your preparation, point number one. Point number two, we have this fantastic feature called predicted CAT percentile. So remember that SimCATs, even though it's the largest test series in the country right now, it's not taken by all the CAT takers, right? So typically your performance on the day of the CAT in terms of percentile is typically higher than what you see during the SimCAT. So I would say just keep looking at that estimated CAT percentile. It will give you some confidence. And then look into the results, like I said, like I said, please have an objective of the test. So maybe today I'm taking a test and my sole objective in VARC is I have to clear the cutoff, right? If I do that, I think I've achieved my goal. In quant, it can be, look, I have not be able to attempt 5 questions in the last 3 tests at all. So today my sole goal is to ensure that I at least attempt 5 questions. So if I can do that, I would say I had a good SimCAT. So have a list of objectives for each section, and if you meet that, I think you should be fine. And then keep looking at the overall scores to show you, are you progressing in the right direction. And if you are consistently hitting that cutoff point across all the 3 sections, then I think you are in a race to get to that maximizing stage where you say, let me go to the 95 percentile mark, 99 percentile mark, 99.9 percentile mark. So I would say set realistic goals. So if you are at 40 percentile, if you keep looking at, oh, why am I not achieving a 99.99, you are setting up yourself for disappointments. But you can say, okay, I'm at 40, let me go to 80 in the next 3 tests. Then I think you'll be far more motivated to take more SimCATs.
The main issue is that people think about that they can solve a sum in 2 minutes, because they think about 2 minutes per question, because they say 40 minutes, 22 questions are there. So that is the number they have in the mindset. But the thing is, you have to be realistic and you think about the goals. Or 90 percentile is achievable, let's say, at a score of maybe 18 odd marks. So 6 questions basically is more than sufficient. And in quant, you can ensure accuracy. So whenever, let's say, you are solving a 8 question or maybe a 9 question, one can be certain that all 8 or 9 basically are more or less correct, because you have way to verify the answer as well. So people who might have a goal, let's say, like solving 8 questions or 10 questions, they might have 4 minutes per questions. So leaving aside those 10, 12 questions, not going to have a very big, let's say, on the outcome of the CAT basically.
Professor, I have a question for you. Since you look at so much data and stats at IMS, so what do toppers do differently from, let's say, the rest of the students? It's a very broad question, but I think it will give you enough room to answer the question that everybody wants, to get answered, that how do I score that X percentile, etc.
So definitely toppers look at the data, right? So most data-driven individuals also know what the data is trying to tell them and how to derive meaning out of that data, right? So when I look at SimCAT, for example, should I be looking at percentiles or should I be looking at scores? And if I get a high percentile or a high score, how do I react to that, right? So somebody might think, hey, I got a 99 percentile, right? And now I don't need to improve further. Whereas somebody might think that, oh, I got a 99 percentile in this test. That there are so many variables outside that maybe very few people have taken the test, or maybe some people have even in fact cheated in this particular test, right? You never know what is going to happen. So don't take everything to your heart. So toppers know that how to separate meaning from the noise that is there. The second thing is, a topper is aware that how exactly they want to go about their preparation. So where the gaps are. Of course, everybody benefits from having a mentor, right? And if you look at even the top athletes, right, why do they have coaches? Because they are the best at their game, right? I mean, you think of any sport and take the best sports person. You know that they're going to need coaches because there is still scope for improvement. So a topper, I think, follows that philosophy, never settle. That they know that no matter how much they have done, there is still room for improvement. So let me focus on that. And at the same time, have some self-confidence also that what I've done is enough. But yes, I can get better. So if you keep that sort of mentality, which most of the toppers have, I think students will do well. And the other very important thing is to not give up, because as you said, right, the progress and journey is not going to be linear. So there will be days when you do extremely badly in a SimCat, and then what do you do, right? So you are going to need a lot of self-motivation, which definitely is not going to happen by watching some motivational videos on YouTube where you feel motivated for 15 minutes and after that you're back to your normal self, criticizing your life choices and so on. So a topper is able to do all of that, and I think that mental clarity is something that takes them to a 99 plus percentile more than anything else. Because we have seen students who in any of the SimCats never crossed a 98 percentile, going to a 99.9 on the CAT day, because they know that all the effort that they have put in is adding up. And at no point they're questioning that decision that, hey, I'm putting in the effort and I don't see a progress or whatever. Where is it taking me? They know that it is going to add up and it is going to make them better. So you, of course, do more questions and all of that. They definitely know how to improve aptitude, etc., with the right inputs from say IMS mentors and the kind of material and the questions and everything that we offer on MyMS. So they know what exactly to do with what has been given to them. So I think that's what toppers do differently compared to others.
One more thing, if you look at for the 99th percentiler who might be achieving this year, many of them might have get a 90 percentile or a 80 percentile last year. So they learn from their mistakes. So many of them, let's say, might have focused completely on quant. They might have left alone the VARC section, or might not have done enough in the DI, or maybe on that particular day, they might not have done well in the DI part, where they might have goofed up on the selection front. But they learn from the mistake. And let's say if they have not, let's say, put effort in one section or the two section for that matter, next year, they, let's say, take all the mocks and they, let's say, take the corrective actions, and that leads to the improvement in the actual percentile in the coming year.
Okay. So we're almost towards the end of the video. So we'll close with one tip or any one idea or insight that you want to share which will help the students. So we'll start with you, Kumud.
Yes, of course. So I'm going to put forward a proverb which I'm expecting people to know. Jump right back onto the horse. That means if something bad happens, you got a bad test score, still take the next test. Sometimes you haven't studied for 3 days or for a week, you fell sick, something happened at work. 4th day, 5th day, get back to your prep. I think that's very, very important.
So keep on taking the SimCat. Low scores are not the problem. Why are they low? Find out the root cause and take the corrective actions.
I would have gone with what she said, but since I have to change my answer, so apart from being consistent, I would say finally the prep should be fun for you. So either you enjoy at least one of the 3 sections, and or maybe you enjoy the test taking process. So if you hate or fear all 4, then I think there is an issue. So I would say have fun in the process. Maybe on the day of the CAT, after your results are out, at least should be say that this entire process, made me better. Maybe I become more logical thinker. Maybe I read 10 books that I have never done in my life, or maybe you actually get into your dream B schools. So have fun in the process. I think a lot of people before you have made it, and I see no reason why you should not be following the same process.
Okay, so my tip is going to be regarding going back and asking yourself, why do you want to do this in the first place, right? So why are you doing this? Why are you doing CAT preparation? Why do you want to do an MBA? Because what I've observed over the journey is it's very difficult to stay motivated every single day. I mean, even 4 of us in this room, right? We don't have the same level of motivation every day. But then we ask ourselves, okay, why are we doing this, right? What is going to happen at the end of the day? So if I go back and think of, okay, what was the objective with which I started CAT preparation? No matter whether I get a bad score or in a particular sectional test I don't do well or I do very well, I'll still come back and say that, okay, I'm not losing sight of the bigger picture, that, hey, ultimately it's the CAT that I want to crack. And I'll take all the steps that are required. And that may include not only doing prep, but letting go of some of the bad habits that I may have. sacrificing some of the things, for example, Netflix, as you mentioned, right, that not watching a movie is not going to hurt you, but not doing, let's say, 400 DI sets or 400 RCs is going to be problematic for you. So sacrificing a few things for that limited period of time will be required, and I hope students do it. So that brings us to the end of this insightful conversation. Thank you so much for watching. We sincerely hope you have benefited from this. In case you haven't subscribed to the channel, do it right away. Wish all of you all the best. Bye. Take care.